You think you're alone on that empty road. Just headlights, pavement and silence. But some highways in Canada aren't empty. They carry more than traffic. They carry history soaked in blood, sorrow, and things that move when they shouldn't. Some roads whisper your name, others trap you in loops, and a few take more than just your sense of direction. Tonight we're taking you down the 15 most haunted roads in Canada. Not legends, not myths, real stories, real sightings. And if you're watching this alone, you've already made the first mistake. Because no one should drive on these roads after dark. You've been warned. Canada is vast, endless forests, isolated towns, roads that stretch for hundreds of kilometers with nothing but trees and shadows on either side. But some of these roads were built over forgotten burial sites, over towns that no longer exist, through places that were never meant to be disturbed. From indigenous land, scarred by colonial violence, to highways where countless lives were lost in accidents, disappearances, and unexplained events, the silence in these places isn't peace, it's a warning. Drivers have reported phantom vehicles that tail them, only to vanish when headlights flash. Others see a figure standing on the roadside, only to realize there's nowhere for anyone to stand. And then there are those who never made it home, whose last breath was taken behind the wheel, and whose spirits now remain in the very place they died. These roads don't care if you believe in ghosts. They just want you to drive a little further, and once you're on them, turning back isn't always an option. Haunted Road, number 1, Highway 401, Ontario's Highway of Horrors. Stretched between London and Toronto, there's a reason some truckers refuse to drive alone on this stretch at night. Highway 401 is one of the busiest and deadliest highways in North America, but between the endless miles of concrete and white lines, something else travels, something not made of steel or rubber. Near the Cambridge and Milton areas, drivers report strange figures appearing on the shoulder. Some say they see a woman in white walking along the guardrail. Others describe a man standing motionless in the middle of the lane, causing drivers to swerve only to find no one there when they look back. One of the most chilling incidents involved a couple who called OPP to report a body on the road. Officers arrived within minutes but found nothing. The couple insisted. Dashcam footage confirmed they both screamed and braked suddenly. But the camera? It showed nothing. Accidents are frequent along this corridor. Fatal ones. Locals claim the energy from those deaths hasn't left. Some drivers say they've been followed by phantom headlights, always in the rear view, never getting closer. But when they pull over to let the vehicle pass, it vanishes, just gone, no sound, no tire marks, no explanation. Even veteran truck drivers talk about radios cutting out, GPS units spinning endlessly, and a freezing chill that hits the cab for no reason at all, even in summer. This stretch has been dubbed the Highway of Horrors by some drivers, not just because of what's happened, but because of what they've seen, or think they've seen. Because when you're speeding along the 401, surrounded by blackness and mist, you're not just dodging traffic, you're dodging what lies between the white lines. Number 2, the Phantom Car of River Road, St. Catharines, Ontario. River Road runs along the edge of the Niagara River, cutting through the sleepy outskirts of St. Catharines. By day, it looks like any other rural Ontario route, lined with trees, quiet homes, and the occasional curve hugging the water. But at night, River Road changes. Locals call it the stretch where the car never stops. For decades, residents and late-night drivers have spoken about a phantom vehicle, an old black car with no license plate that appears out of nowhere. It races up from behind, high beams blinding, engine roaring louder than any modern vehicle. When you try to let it pass, it doesn't. It just tailgates you dangerously close, then vanishes. No turn-off, no skid marks, nothing. Some have reported being chased for minutes, only for the headlights to disappear the moment they reach a populated area. Others say their engine sputtered or stalled as the car approached, only to start working again once it disappeared. One man, a delivery driver on a midnight route, said he saw the black car in his rear view. It got so close he could see the outline of a driver, but the figure had no face, just darkness behind the windshield. When the car finally swerved off, it didn't hit the ditch, it didn't crash, it simply drove off the road and faded. The origins of the haunting are murky. Some believe the spirit belongs to a man who died in a high-speed crash in the 1950s after running off the road into the river. His body was recovered, but his car was never found. Others say multiple accidents have occurred along the same bends, always involving a black sedan and always ending the same way, with the survivor swearing they were being chased. Whatever the truth is, locals don't test it. Most avoid River Road after midnight, and if they must drive it, they keep their mirrors covered and their eyes fixed ahead. Because if you see headlights where there shouldn't be any, it might already be too late, and the next road isn't content with just following you. It calls out with voices, with screams begging drivers to stop, but those who do never forget what they find. Number 3. The Screaming Tunnel, Niagara Falls, Ontario. Just off Warner Road, near the outskirts of Niagara Falls, lies a narrow limestone passage beneath an old railway track. To most, it's just a short tunnel, damp, cold and forgotten. But to anyone who grew up around the area, it's something else entirely. They call it the Screaming Tunnel. The legend dates back over a century. The story goes that a young girl was trapped inside the tunnel during a fire, her clothes soaked in kerosene and set ablaze, either by accident or something far darker. She died in agony, her screams echoing off the stone walls until they were silenced. To this day, those screams are said to return. Visitors brave enough to enter at night say that if you stand in the middle and light a match, you'll hear her scream a sudden, high-pitched cry that rises from the dark. Some say the flame blows out on its own, even when the air is still. Others report hearing footsteps sloshing through the water on the tunnel floor, approaching fast. One man claimed he heard heavy breathing just behind his shoulder as he walked through. He turned with his phone flashlight and saw nothing, but when he played back the recording later, he heard something like a soft cry and what sounded like someone whispering, "Stay." Locals avoid the tunnel at night. Some even refuse to speak about it. It's been featured in ghost tours, paranormal documentaries, and countless retellings by those who swore they left with more than just a scare. Some say their phones stopped working for days. Others say the nightmares started that same night, always with fire, always with screams. Though it's no longer part of an active road, the path leading to the Screaming Tunnel still draws in the curious. But for those who go looking for a ghost, they often come back with something they can't explain. And the next road, it doesn't whisper, it doesn't scream, it traps. Drivers speak of the same turns repeating again and again, like the road is folding in on itself. Some never find the way out, at least not the same way they came in. Number 4. Spook Hill, Lake George Road, near Halifax, Nova Scotia. In the quiet woods just outside Halifax, there's a stretch of road that defies all logic. Locals call it Spook Hill. Officially, it's part of Lake George Road, but among those who've experienced it firsthand, it's earned another name, Gravity Hill. When you stop your car at the bottom of this hill, put it in neutral, and let go of the brakes, something strange happens. Instead of rolling downhill, your vehicle begins to roll uphill. Slowly at first, then faster, as if pulled by unseen hands. Some say it's just an optical illusion, a trick of the landscape, but those who live nearby tell a different story. They speak of an accident that happened decades ago. A school bus filled with children stalled at the foot of the hill. A truck came speeding down and couldn't stop in time. The crash was devastating. Everyone on board was killed, and ever since, strange things have happened there. Many visitors who perform the hill test report hearing faint laughter or whispers as the car begins to move. Some have returned to their vehicle to find small handprints on the trunk or windows, far too small to belong to any adult. One Halifax couple, testing the legend late one night, felt the car jerk forward, not gently, violently, as if something was angry. They said the radio cut out, the air inside turned freezing, and when they tried to restart the car, it wouldn't respond. Not until the third try, when the engine suddenly roared to life, headlights were already flickering. There are no houses nearby, no streetlights, just trees, darkness, and whatever watches from the edge of the woods. Skeptics still insist it's all science, that it's just the shape of the land. But those who felt their car pulled, those who've heard voices where there should be none, know better. Spook Hill doesn't just play tricks on your eyes, it tests your nerves. And if you're not careful, it may take you farther than you meant to go. Number 5. Red Bridge Road, Wakefield, Quebec. Just outside the peaceful village of Wakefield, hidden beneath layers of forest and thyme, lies a stretch of road locals avoid after dark. Red Bridge Road is named after the rusted remains of an old iron bridge that once connected two forgotten paths. Today, only fragments remain, and something else that never left. According to local legend, decades ago, a young woman was thrown from the bridge after a violent argument with her lover. Her body was never recovered, and for years the area was simply considered cursed. Then the sightings began. Drivers who slow near the remains of the bridge have seen a woman standing at the edge of the road, always dressed in white, sometimes soaked from head to toe, like she just climbed out of the river. Other times she's barefoot, wandering the woods just beyond the tree line. A Wakefield resident once reported seeing the figure on his evening drive home. When he slowed down, thinking it was someone in distress, the figure turned. Her face was pale, her mouth open as if screaming, but no sound came out. She vanished the moment his headlights passed. Others have said their radios begin to crackle with static near the old bridge. Some hear crying through the speakers. A few claim the car begins to stall, as if the engine is resisting the road. More than one vehicle has broken down in the exact same spot, forcing drivers to walk for help and report hearing footsteps trailing them the entire time. In winter, the snow around the bridge sometimes shows footprints. They appear in the middle of the night. Always barefoot, always leading to the riverbank, but never away from it. Local teenagers dare each other to visit at midnight. Most come back shaken, silent. A few refuse to say what they saw. Some believe the woman's spirit is still waiting, not for rescue, but for revenge. And if you stop your car too long, if you speak her name out loud, you might be the one she follows next. Number 6. Holland Road, Fletcher's Lake, Nova Scotia. Holland Road looks ordinary in daylight. A narrow rural strip cutting through thick woods and quiet stretches of land near Fletcher's Lake. But when the sun sets and fog settles low across the road, everything changes. This place is known to locals by another name, the Ghost Road. For years, drivers have reported a lone woman walking along the shoulder late at night. She's always in white, sometimes holding something, a purse, a book, a bundle in her arms. As you approach, she turns her head slowly and her face is completely blank. She vanishes before the car passes. Locals trace the haunting back to a tragic accident that happened decades ago. A young woman was struck by a car on a foggy night while walking home from the bus stop. The driver claimed he never saw her until it was too late. She died instantly, but that wasn't the end. Drivers now say their radios cut out the moment they near the area where she was hit. Some report their headlights dim or flicker. Others claim they've had to swerve violently to avoid hitting someone, only to find no one there. One man, a retired firefighter, said he was driving home after a late shift when he saw a woman standing in the road. He slammed the brakes, heart pounding, but when he stepped out, the road was empty. He heard soft crying from the woods, but there was nothing to see. There's also the story of the bundled figure. A few drivers have claimed they saw the woman cradling what looked like a baby, but when they got closer, the bundle was empty. Just a piece of cloth, or worse, a burned, blackened mass. Some say she's searching for someone. Others say she doesn't know she's dead. The haunting on Holland Road isn't loud or violent. It's quiet, lingering, and it stays with you long after you've left. The next road isn't nearly as silent. In fact, it's known for the screams, and the closer you get to the end, the louder they become. Number 7. The Devil's Road, Northumberland County, Ontario. Tucked deep within the backwoods of Northumberland County, an unmarked trail cuts through dense trees and steep hills. Most GPS systems won't show it. Locals call it the Devil's Road, and they warn visitors not to follow it after sundown. The road's true name has been lost over time, but its reputation has only grown darker. Legend says it was once used as a logging trail and later as a smuggling route during Prohibition. Strange disappearances were whispered about for decades, hikers who never returned, vehicles found abandoned with the engines still warm. But what made the stories take root were the screams. Drivers who've taken the route at night report hearing them echoing through the woods. High-pitched, panicked screams, as if someone is being chased. Some have claimed to hear heavy footsteps running alongside their car, even when driving at 60 kilometers an hour. Then there are the red eyes. Multiple witnesses report seeing pairs of glowing red eyes in the tree line, moving along with their vehicle, never blinking, never stopping. Others say their car radios emit deep growls or a static-filled voice repeating a phrase they can't understand. One couple described how their headlights began to flicker as they neared the curve of the road. Then the car stalled completely. They tried to restart it, but the battery was dead. As they sat in silence, they heard something walking slowly around the vehicle. It tapped the hood, circled the doors, then stopped. When help arrived an hour later, the battery worked perfectly. Locals say the road was cursed long before settlers arrived. Some believe a tree along the path was used for executions. Others say the area was sacred land and disturbing it awoke something. Whether spirit, entity, or something older, no one agrees, but they do agree on one thing: no one drives the Devil's Road twice, because if you see what's waiting near the final bend, you won't ever come back. Number 8. Fox Lake Road, Huntsville, Ontario. Fox Lake Road stretches just west of the town of Huntsville, weaving through thick forest and marshland. On a map it's a standard rural route, but to those who've driven it at night, it's anything but ordinary. For years people have reported strange experiences that all follow a similar pattern. Drivers turn onto Fox Lake Road and begin to feel disoriented. Some notice the road ahead seems to repeat itself, the same tree, the same curve, the same stretch of gravel over and over again. It's as if the road loops, even when they continue in a straight line. A local cab driver once described picking up a passenger just outside Huntsville, who asked to be dropped off near Fox Lake. He took the route like he'd done dozens of times before, but this time something changed. His dashboard clock blinked out. GPS failed. His watch stopped. What should have taken 15 minutes stretched into over an hour. When he finally returned to town, the dispatcher claimed he'd been off the radar the entire time. Others have experienced memory loss. A group of teenagers admitted they drove down the road on a dare. They all remembered getting in the car. They all remembered the first few turns. Then nothing. One of them came an hour later behind the wheel, parked at the same spot where they entered, with no recollection of turning around. Some drivers say they see figures standing at the edge of the trees, pale, unmoving, sometimes with their faces obscured by fog. A few report headlights appearing behind them, then vanishing. And there are those who say they hear voices, sometimes a woman calling for help, other times someone repeating their name from the woods. There is no official explanation, no marked graves, no documented tragedies, but those who know the area say it's best left alone. They say the road doesn't like strangers, and when it senses fear, it keeps you longer. Fox Lake Road may not look dangerous, but many who've driven it late at night return confused, shaken, or not at all. Number 9. Highway 2A, between Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta. Once part of the main route connecting Edmonton and Calgary, Highway 2A is quieter now, bypassed by modern highways and often forgotten by those in a hurry. But those who drive it at night, especially in the long stretches between small towns, know better than to ignore what happens there. Locals say this road remembers every accident, every death, every scream. One of the most common sightings involves a man standing in the middle of the lane, dressed in dark clothes, head down. He appears just after you pass the last major light, usually near a bend in the road. Drivers say they slam their brakes, swerving to avoid him. But when they get out to check, no one is there. Not in front, not behind, nothing but silence and empty highway. Then the radio turns on by itself. Reports go back decades. One story tells of a family whose car broke down near a service road off 2A. While waiting for a tow, they heard knocking on the windows. At first it was soft, then louder, but there was no one outside, just a thick fog rolling over the fields. When the tow truck finally arrived, the driver said he'd passed them 3 times, and each time the car wasn't there. Truckers have their own stories. They talk of taillights ahead that can't be caught, or hearing metal crash sounds without any collision, or feeling like someone is sitting in the passenger seat, even when they're alone. The area is known for multiple fatal accidents over the years, especially in the early 90s. One wreck was so violent, witnesses say the vehicle burst into flames before emergency crews could reach it. Locals believe the spirit of the driver never left. Some even claim to have seen him walking toward their car on the shoulder, only to vanish just before they pass him. What makes Highway 2A more unsettling than most is its unpredictability. You might drive it 10 times without issue, then one night everything changes. The road seems too dark, the silence is too deep, the air inside your car feels wrong, and that's when you realize something is with you. But if you think ghosts on the road are frightening, the next location pushes beyond the physical. Reports of voices coming through car speakers, figures crawling out from ditches, and headlights that track you even after the car is off. The road ahead only gets darker. Let's keep going. Number 10. The Marsh Lake Stretch, Yukon Territory. Deep in the remote Yukon wilderness, south of Whitehorse, there's a stretch of road near Marsh Lake that few drive at night, not because of the weather or wildlife, but because of the voices. Locals have long whispered about that stretch of the Alaska Highway, especially between Marsh Lake and Judas Creek. Drivers have reported hearing people talking inside their car when no one else is with them. Sometimes it's a single voice. Sometimes it's a full conversation, soft, close, and impossible to understand. The stories go back generations. The most well-known account comes from a man who was driving the road late one winter night when he suddenly felt the temperature inside the vehicle drop sharply, his windows fogged. The dashboard lights flickered, and then he heard someone whisper from the back seat, "Don't stop." He looked in the mirror. Nothing there. Another case involved two snowmobilers who parked near the road to rest. Just after midnight, they both heard what sounded like a woman crying from the woods nearby. They went to investigate, thinking someone was in trouble. But after just a few steps into the trees, the crying stopped, replaced by low breathing all around them. They returned to their sleds to find both engines dead and their footprints gone. Some believe the area is haunted by spirits of travelers who froze to death decades ago, when the road was still new and services were few and far between. Others think it's tied to the land itself, which holds older stories from long before settlers came. There are also reports of cars briefly vanishing from the road, seen driving into fog, then never emerging on the other side. Some reappear further down, some don't. The RCAP has received enough strange calls about this stretch to investigate, but they've never found anything unusual, at least not officially. What makes the Marsh Lake stretch different is how it affects the living. It doesn't just show you things, it gets inside your head. It makes you feel watched, even when you're the only car for miles. And some drivers say once you've heard the voices, they follow you home. Number 11. The Nahanni Trail Access Road, Northwest Territory. Hidden within the untouched wilderness of the Northwest Territories lies a rough, isolated stretch of gravel that few outside the region know about. The road leading toward the Nahanni Valley. It's not just wilderness that keeps people away, it's fear. They call this region the Valley of Headless Men, and the road that gets you close. Locals say it's cursed. Stories from as far back as the early 1900s describe prospectors entering the valley and never coming back, or worse, found months later with their heads missing and no explanation. Several murders were reported during the Klondike era, and RCMP files still list some of those cases as unsolved. That legacy of violence seems to linger on the access road itself. Travelers using the Nahanni Trail Access Road report losing time, hours, disappearing from the clock without reason. Others say they see fires flickering in the woods along the way, even during downpours, with no source. A few have pulled over after seeing what they thought was a person waving for help, only to find no one there, just footprints that lead into the bush and stop. A documentary filmmaker, camping along the road during a solo trip, said he heard screaming in the early morning hours. Not animals, not wind screams, humans, and panicked. He grabbed his gear and fled, leaving his tent behind. When he returned 2 days later with a guide, his camp had been shredded, but nothing was stolen. The area is known for strange electromagnetic readings, compass needles spin, radios cut out. Some say even GPS gets scrambled the closer you get to the trailheads. The few locals who live nearby refuse to drive that route alone, and those who've done it once often say they'll never return. The Nahanni Valley's darkness doesn't wait for you to reach it. It starts on the road leading in. Number 12. McEwen Road, Springwater Township, Ontario. Just outside Barrie, in the quiet farmland of Springwater Township, there's a road locals don't like to drive after dark. McEwen Road looks harmless by day, a narrow tree-lined path stretching between open fields and old barns. But at night, it becomes something else entirely. It's known for the crash. Years ago, a family of 5 died in a fiery accident along one of its curves. The exact cause was never clear. Locals say their car swerved off the road without reason, hit a tree, and burst into flames. Witnesses who arrived minutes later claimed they could hear crying from the wreck long after the flames were out. Since then, reports have never stopped. Drivers at sunset say they see a small child standing by the ditch near where the crash occurred. The child doesn't move, just stares. Others say they've heard laughter from the fields, not playful but hollow. A few have even claimed that, while driving through at night, their radio cuts out and a lullaby plays instead. There's a stretch of the road where car engines sometimes sputter or headlights flicker. One couple's vehicle completely shut down while coasting that section. As they waited for help, the man saw tiny handprints forming on the fogged inside of the back window, even though no one else was in the car. Another driver reported seeing a burning car in the distance ahead, panicking and pulling over to call 911. But as they approached, it faded. No smell, no sound, just cold air and silence. Local farmers say they often hear footsteps on their gravel driveways late at night, even though no one's there. Dogs bark at nothing, lights flicker without reason. One long-time resident swears that every year, on the same night as the crash, a faint smell of burning rubber and gasoline fills the air. There's no memorial plaque, no flowers on the side of the road, but those who've seen and heard what happens there know something never moved on. Number 13, Route 132, Gaspé Peninsula, Quebec. Route 130 winds along the breathtaking cliffs and coastline of the Gaspé Peninsula. Tourists come for the ocean views, historic lighthouses, and peaceful isolation. But ask the locals, and you'll hear a different side to this stretch of highway, one that's steeped in centuries of sorrow, shipwrecks, and spirits. It's one of the oldest travel routes in Quebec, and with its age come stories. Not the kind in guidebooks, but those passed down in hushed voices. Fishermen in the area have long spoken of the phantom sailor, a man in soaked clothing who appears on the roadside, waving his arms as if flagging for help. When drivers stop, he disappears, leaving behind only the sound of the sea and, in some cases, the stinging scent of salt water inside the car. Some believe he's the ghost of a shipwrecked crewman from one of the many vessels lost along the rocky Gaspé shores. A few stories place him near Cap de Rosier, where the worst maritime disaster in Canadian history occurred, the sinking of the Carricks in 1847. Dozens of Irish immigrants perished, many buried in mass graves nearby. Some say their souls never left the coast. One truck driver reported seeing a procession of shadowy figures walking along the edge of the road at night, all heading in the same direction. He slowed, thinking it was some kind of memorial or late-night group. But as his headlights reached them, every figure vanished, swallowed by fog that hadn't been there seconds before. EVP recordings taken near certain highway pullouts have picked up faint voices, some in French, others in what sounds like Irish Gaelic. Paranormal investigators who visited one particularly active spot reported equipment failures, drained batteries, and motion sensors triggering without any visible presence. More unsettling are the dreams. People who've driven long stretches of Route 132 at night often speak of vivid nightmares afterward. Many describe drowning. Others report dreams where they're walking endlessly down a gravel path, hearing someone calling from behind but never seeing who it is. Route 132 is a place where the dead are remembered, but on some nights they do more than linger. And the next road isn't near the water. It cuts through dense forest, where strange lights follow your car and voices speak from behind trees. No cell signal, no homes, and once you're deep enough, turning back is no longer an option. Ready for what waits in the trees? Let's go. Number 14, the Deacon Road, Ottawa, Ontario. Just southwest of Ottawa, buried between old farmland and patches of thick forest, lies Deacon Road. On maps, it appears like any other rural route. But to those who live nearby, it's known as one of the region's most active supernatural corridors. What makes Deacon Road different is how quickly things change once you're on it. Clear skies turn to fog within minutes. The air becomes still, heavy, and then come the sounds. Many drivers have reported hearing footsteps behind their vehicles while pulled over, slow, steady pacing on gravel that stops the moment they step outside. Others say they hear breathing in the back seat, only to find nothing but darkness when they turn to look. But the most repeated story is that of the faceless hitchhiker. For over 20 years, people have described seeing a lone figure standing at the edge of the road late at night, always male, always wearing a wide-brimmed hat. Those who drive past without stopping report a wave of cold air sweeping through the car and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Those who do stop say the man approaches slowly, face completely blank, then vanishes before reaching the car door. One teenager, driving home from a late shift, said she saw someone standing in the middle of the road. When she blinked, he was suddenly standing at her driver's side window, tapping the glass. But when she turned on the interior light, there was no one there. The marks on the window remained. There have also been reports of time distortion. Several drivers claimed they were on the road for no more than 15 minutes, only to arrive home hours later, unsure of where the time had gone. Older residents speak of this place as a kind of passage, not just haunted, but active. Something walks it, watches it, follows those who linger too long. Deacon Road doesn't just unsettle you while you're on it. It stays with you after. Some say they hear knocking at their doors at 3 a.m. for nights afterward. Always 3 knocks, always followed by silence. And the final road, it's the one they warn tourists about, even if it doesn't appear on most maps. The accidents there are frequent, the deaths are real, but it's the reports from survivors that chill the most. They all say the same thing. They weren't alone in their car, and something tried to keep them from leaving. Ready to hear about it? Okay, follow me. Number 15, Highway 16, the Highway of Tears, British Columbia. This final stretch is one of the most infamous roads in all of Canada. Highway 16, which runs through northern British Columbia, is beautiful by day, surrounded by mountains, forests, and long empty horizons. But at night, the silence becomes suffocating, and the weight of the road's history settles in hard. It's not just haunted by whispers or shadows, it's haunted by loss. For decades, Highway 16 has been linked to the tragic disappearances and murders of dozens of Indigenous women and girls. Since the 1970s, many have vanished without a trace along this stretch between Prince George and Prince Rupert. The exact number is disputed, but the stories are real, and the pain runs deep. Road signs now stand along the route reminding drivers of those still missing, begging for awareness and justice. Travelers have described seeing women standing at the roadside, trying to wave down cars, only to vanish before anyone gets close. Some have seen figures walking along the shoulder, late at night, dressed in clothing decades out of date. Others report hearing someone crying from the nearby forest or screams echoing from tree lines where no one is visible. Truckers, many of whom drive this route regularly, tell stories of phantom hitchhikers. A few claim to have picked up young women who sit silently, give only a first name, and then disappear mid-route. One driver said his passenger vanished while the truck was still moving. The seatbelt remained buckled. There's also the overwhelming feeling many report, a heavy, pressing sense of dread. Some say it starts at a certain curve near Smithers. Others feel it closer to Terrace. The sensation isn't just fear, it's grief, deep, old, and still present. Locals say the road doesn't just take people, it holds onto them. Paranormal investigators who have visited the area report batteries dying, equipment failing, and EVP recordings filled with static, sobbing, and faint voices calling names. The deeper they went, the more they felt they were being followed, not out of curiosity, but resentment. This road is not just a haunted place, it is a scar, a reminder of lives taken too soon, of stories unfinished, and spirits unwilling to be forgotten. If you ever find yourself driving Highway 16 at night, and the radio cuts out, or your lights flicker, or you feel someone watching from the dark, don't stop. Now that we've reached the end, stay close, there's something you need to hear. So now you know, 15 roads across Canada where the haunted don't just whisper, they follow, they walk beside your car, they leave fingerprints on your windows, they remember your name, and they do not forgive. You've heard of the woman in white, the faceless man, the vanishing hitchhikers, and the footsteps in the woods. But the truth is, not every road with a ghost has a name. Some of them begin the moment you leave your house at night. Others are waiting just down the street, quiet, patient, watching. And here's what no one tells you. Some of these roads, they don't end where they should. Some keep going, long after your GPS says you've arrived. Long after the signs disappear, long after the stars fade. You might think you're driving home, but something else might be steering. So the next time you drive alone, and your lights flicker, or your music cuts out, or the air gets too cold too fast, don't stop, don't check your mirrors, and whatever you do, don't open your window. because it's not always the living who want a ride. Now tell us in the comments which road chilled you the most. Which one have you dared to drive? Have you ever seen something on the side of the highway that wasn't there when you looked back? Share your story and subscribe, because next time we're taking you even deeper into Canada's darkest places. You think this was terrifying? You haven't seen what's next.